The day was Palm Sunday, and I was sitting at Mass, realizing that I had not gone to Mass without my family in a long time. So my children had gotten sick that day, and my husband decided to stay home to be with the kids while I went to Mass, and I promised that I would pray for them. But I realized there is a bit of freedom to go to Mass on your own after having gone with my family and my 2 kids under the age of 4 for a long time, for many weeks. And then also a bit of loneliness to realize that I didn't have them with me this time. There was no noise from the boys running around, no shuffling of papers or shuffling feet or little giggles, that there was no way that I could hide because they're little toddlers and preschoolers just feeding off of each other's little kid energy. It was kind of an eye-opener because I did miss my family. Because of that, I decided I wanted to pray more for them, especially for my kids, so that they could get better. And they did get better really quickly. But one thing that I noticed that was a grace that God had given to me was that I had found a friend during Mass. I had been feeling a bit of loneliness in my faith for many years, ever since I moved to the Bay Area. So I started coming back to the church after graduating from grad school in 2016. During that time, I was doing a lot of career searching, finding a job, and just trying to figure out what I wanted to do in my life. My younger brother passed away in 2016, and that was when I'd moved to the Bay. And because of that, that's really what catapulted me to go back into the faith, because I had to set up his funeral mass and just to learn about all the novenas, the ways that we could pray for the dead. That was really my return back into the church, as unfortunate as that is. And during those years while I had been living in the Bay Area, I had finally realized that I was completely alone up here spiritually, because I had moved away from all of my friends and family. I had grown up as a cradle Catholic, being surrounded by friends and family, always at church every Sunday. It never occurred to me what spiritual loneliness would be until I finally settled down and moved and started to build my own life after chasing after my career. And even when I had gotten engaged to my husband and we were going through Pre-Cana, which is the marriage counseling for engaged couples who are trying to get married in the Catholic Church, it was even more apparent the amount of spiritual loneliness I had, because I didn't have Catholic friends after moving up here. I found it pretty difficult to establish community in any of the churches that I had attended, because the main church that I went to when I was working in San Francisco, which was St. Patrick Catholic Church, and that was where my husband and I got married. It was more of a traveling church, and I mainly went there on weekdays. So, although I did go on Sundays a few times. So it wasn't really something that I was able to build community. When my husband and I had gotten married, and several months after, we went to the Archbishop for Christmas that year. This was in 2019. We found out we were pregnant. Obviously, I had to start looking into baptisms. I didn't have any friends up here who were Catholic. And the ones who were Catholic or who were raised Catholic were not eligible to be godparents, because they were not in where they possibly weren't practicing Catholics, or they were married but not married in the church. So they couldn't be candidates for godparents, because you have to be in a good state of grace as well as being a practicing Catholic. So for me, it was a little bit shocking to have that much difficulty to find Catholic friends and find people who could be godparents. And then fast forward, we ended up having our second child, 3, and we had eventually found godparents. They're friends from Southern California, so they're not going to be local. But it was a moment of realizing that I had spiritual loneliness up here, and I'm not sure if this is something that's very common now, but maybe it is, because I know a lot of people in my generation ended up going to college, not attending church after leaving high school, and maybe had difficulty getting back into the church afterwards. So if there are people out there who are in the same situation like me, know that you're not alone. But at least that was my experience with spiritual loneliness.
The palm on the